Hi, welcome to my show, wherein I intend to present a veritable glut of blades and discuss blade profiles, blade profiling, and some of my motivations for why I name blade profiles the way that I do, and why I think that it's good to advocate for blade pedantry, for, not it's not to go out and police other people per se, or to be you're wrong, or to shit post, or give free rein to one's ego. Well, it's not just about these things. That's what I mean. It is all about all of that stuff. It is about all of that stuff, in part, no doubt, in many instances, including my own. Yes, the hearts of men are wicked, and I base that on empirical experience because I am a man with a heart, and it's wicked. So come at me. I'm a friendly guy, and I enjoy conversation, and I enjoy exchange. And, there's another thing that I really enjoy that maybe sets me apart somewhat, and that is criticism. I like criticizing, and I also enjoy being criticized. Now, in all instances, it's not pleasant. Sometimes, for example, people need to be criticized, but they don't take kindly to it. And so an unpleasant experience can be had by all parties. And, the criticizer as well as the criticizee, so to speak. This is one scenario in which perhaps I have found myself upon the knife tube. But such is life, and doesn't mean that I can't enjoy it. My blade pedant thing is nominally, technically, let's say, a service, because we have this common good, which is language. And through language, we can establish things together, common archetypes, as it were. I say a word, you know what I mean. I don't have to show you the thing. So, for example, I could say full flat grind, and you know what I mean. And I might say spidey hole, and you might know what that is. And I could say traditional puukko blade profile, but with less belly, and you might get a gist. And I could say swedging that does not go all the way down to the tip, fine swedging, and so forth. So what I got here is a big stack of blades, kind of rolling a smoke right now as I'm speaking. I forgot to get myself a beer, but we're probably best off without at this stage. So I got a stack of knives here. All kinds of knives. Some of the finest knives in my collection, unseen on this channel. Some perhaps unseen on any channel. And I'm going to show them, and I'm going to say what I think the blade profile is, or things about it. And talk a little bit about why, my motivations, my honorable motivations, philosophical motivations for doing so. In no particular order. Kind of as they come. But as I go, I'm going to sort things into families. Somewhat. And it's not going to be exhaustive by any means. For example, I realize now I do not have a puukko. This might almost be the closest thing because it has some heritage, being designed by a Finlander for EDC use. Although obviously you can't really say that that's what it is. But let's go. A Wharncliffe. A drop point recurve. A ram's foot with a very amateur apex that does a bit of a chicane. I don't know. Maybe come back to that. A Wharncliffe. By the way, I'm talking about profile, right? Like if you look at the shadow, okay? So for example, let's come on to this one. Now I'm not being completely random. I know I want to talk about this knife. I'm about to travel to the UP, Michigan. I have a friend named Joe there. He's a Finn by ancestry. And I want to give him a knife. Well, I want to sell him a knife. He'll have to give me a coin. So this is a Finnish-made knife. It's a Brisa. And it's called the Brisa Nesmuk. And it has a Nesmuk profile. But it is not a Nesmuk knife. Because Nesmuk himself, I believe his name was George W. Sears, maybe? He specified this very much this kind of profile for the knife, and this kind of size, probably, I think, from what I recall reading. But he wanted it to be a slicey, full flat grind. And this is a fairly high Scandivex. Nesmuk profile. Brisa. Curly Birch. Lovely. So that I'm not even going to put in a family because it's kind of on its own there. Just leave that one out of sight. Okay. A drop point recurve. Wharncliffe, Ram's Foot, there, kind of cousins. Okay, this guy can scooch out as well. It's kind of okay. Now I call this a Lambscliff. This I deduce because, although, you know, they call it a Wharncliffe, I'm pretty sure. And actually, you know, I could one day, maybe I'll just call it a Wharncliffe. But today, in a short video, I refer to it as a Lambscliff because, see this curve here? It does a little bit of a, it's not a constant curve, right? So if we look at this Wharncliffe, from where the cutting edge starts, the spine behind that does one constant curve. It's a compound curve, but it doesn't do a very abrupt change of direction anywhere, okay? So we're talking subtle differences, but this is one curve, right? One curve. And this I see as more of a compounded. It's still, you know, it's got this little angle there. Which, so, I say, is it wholly a Wharncliffe? Maybe I'd argue that it's creeping into Lambcliffe territory. So let's see if we can find a lamb's foot. A lamb's foot. Yeah. Not a Wharncliffe. Not a sheep's foot. Not a ram's foot. Not a clip point, not a drop point, no recurve, yeah? Lamb's foot. Observe the cutting edge, the spine, the taper down towards the point, taper in towards the point, right? So I'm saying flat, and then this transition, and then there's, it's a straight line on the spine, and there's a curve, transition, and then there's a straight line to the point. And this is a lamb's foot knife, not just a lamb's foot blade profile. It has the blade profile, but it is a lamb's foot knife such as you would use for trimming the hoof of a lamb. So you can go here with the ram's foot, your big brother. Another ram's foot. So we have a straight edge, we still have a straight spine, and it still has a transition. Now maybe, okay, we got a funny curve here, maybe this is a rope knife. But again, today I called it a ram's foot. Why? Because it's the closest thing that I had to hand that I thought was really, ram's footy, meaning it has a straight edge, it has a straight spine, it transitions down to here, but the taper is out the way. See how it tapers out? Whereas the lamb's foot tapers in. And I reckon you got just enough straight line here. No, you know what? I take it back. No, I'll withhold. It's a lamb cliff. It's a little more Warncliffe than lamb cliff. But another lamb cliff would be the Spyderco enough, the straight edge one. It's a lamb cliff. Or this knife, arguably, before I modified the blade. And so what I did was try to go for more of a Warncliffe. However, really, I guess, yeah, I'll go lamb cliff, because there's a straight line here, and then this curves. There's a curve. So the lamb's foot and the sheep's foot, and I guess the ram's foot really. So are these really ram's foot? They're rope knives, okay? So I've got to correct myself. There's not really a ram's foot. Maybe the closest thing I have, profile-wise, to a ram's foot is on the sow belly. But it's short, right? So it's a ram's foot profile. Yeah, of course, there's got to be some curve here, but here I'm seeing a straight line. I'm seeing a straight here, and a straight line here, straight edge, and it tapers out the way. That way. And the sheep's foot. Again, so similar, but no taper. Or is there? Now, this could be deceptive because of the swedging. So, maybe I have to get the calipers out and just, be double anal about it, and maybe find out that this would technically be a lamb's foot or a... Yeah, okay. But this is why I say, you got to have a little bit of leeway, because things don't always come out perfect. So you're swedging here, you're smoothing down, so maybe in the end there's a little bit of a taper off here, but markedly this looks way more parallel, the spine to the edge, than this. Or the lamb's foot. Yes, so maybe you can catch my drift. I know I'm an ass. I know I'm pugnacious. I know that I'm the worst example of everybody's got to have a shtick, but it's my shtick. And I love it. I love this stuff. Sheep's foot, lamb's foot, ram's foot. So yeah, this Warncliffe, okay, it's got a straight line here. Yeah, maybe it should have a pure curve. But if we look at a fairly traditional Warncliffe, from Taylor's Eyewitness, Sheffield, yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a flat here. But by the time the cutting edge starts here, I'm still seeing that consistent single curve. Yes, it tightens in, but there's no actual abrupt change of direction. It's a very sweeping curve. And this has that. Just from a little over, okay? But what, am I going to say it's not a war? Yeah, it also has this. So it's not really a classic Warncliffe knife. A Warncliffe should be robust. I think perhaps the purest example of the Warncliffe, according to the historical description that I have read of the original brief, And the pictures that I've seen could be the KC Seahorse Whittler with this. What is it? Is it serpentine or some kind of dog leg or what? I don't know everything. But this is a Wharncliffe. See that constant sweeping curve? And it's robust. Flat grind. Not that long. It's a whittling small game. Get up in there, pull your splinters out, whatever. So this thing, yes, it's really stretching the concept. You put a hollow grind in there, but as a compromise, keep the solid, robust tip on it. So in a way, it actually stays truer to the spirit of the Wharncliffe by having one of my beloved duplex grinds on it. We're making a mess, but we've still kind of got things grouped somewhat in family, right? Sheep's foot, lamb's foot, ram's foot, questionable. Ram's foot, pretty legit. Lamb's cliff over here, or whatever this is, this funny Chinese interloper. Bizarre thing. I mean, awesome. And actually, D2 steel, this thing whittles like you can't believe, but you also can't believe how annoying that is. What I would like to do, if I ever get round to it, is take this knife to pieces and remove this blade and just have it as the Wharncliffe without the secondary blade, because that would be awesome. I mean, this handle would be great if you could hold it like this, but also get around the back and all that stuff. Then it would be cool. Half did a little better, maybe. Rough up this micarta, it's too smooth. But yeah, it's a funny, cool little thing. I like that kind of stuff. Now I'm calling this a sheep's cliff because we have the straight edge and the straight spine parallel. But here we got this very noticeable aggressive kind of curve that begins a little further back, maybe just a little further back than you would have on your sheep's foot. So yeah, that's why I'm putting the cliff in there, right? And it's a concession, because people will call this Wharncliffe because they see a straight edge here. It's Wharncliffe, Wharncliffe this, Wharncliffe that. Well, then when you're telling someone about the knife and you say Wharncliffe, maybe they're imagining, maybe one person imagines some tactical woo thing and another person imagines something totally different, like the Seahorse Whittler or whatever. So why not have a bit of refinement for those who like it? And those who don't, I don't know, suck it up. Here I am being a pedant. You can't stop me. It's my channel. I don't get a lot of viewers, but the ones who do, some of them get me. And they tolerate me. Thank you. A swordbuster. A lot of people would call this a drop point, but I would have to contend that technically it is a clip point, because a drop point, such as on this drop point recurve, curves down. And a clip point is not just one that curves up. A clip point is anything from straight here, inwards, is a clip point. Unless I'm very much mistaken, in which case I shall stand corrected. I welcome criticism and correction from all sides. And you can insult me and call me names. It's all part of the game. Yeah, definite supporter of freedom of speech here, by the way. So yeah, Swordbuster, kind of would want to put it with the puko, with the little folding puko, actually. But we'll do that off screen because we're running out. Okay, Tanto. Tanto point, yes, pretty much. I mean, I'm not going to start preaching Tanto because whatever. The American Tanto, I will say, because Tanto in Japanese means a knife, right? Certain kind of classification of knife, but it doesn't mean any particular kind of blade profile. But the Tanto, yes, does have this transition, which can sometimes be, two different grinds, as it were, with a pretty much something fairly straight here and something fairly straight there, and this would be a clip point tanto, right? And this, some people might call this some kind of tanto as well, but I wouldn't really. A reverse tanto or something, you know? A reverse tanto, I'm coming to that. Also, possibly a reverse tanto, you know? In fact, I'd probably maybe just go with that instead of saying lamb cliff, because it's a modern knife, you know? But it does have the straights and the parallels. So maybe not. Gotta be a little flexible. Range buster, since we're talking sword buster, here I got the junior. Now, is that a drop point or is that a clip point? I mean, do we have a straight line here or is it a curve? Man, you know, that's why I'm saying sometimes the distinction could be very fine and you might not really be able to have a concise conclusion. But comparing them, you could certainly say that this is more of a drop point and this is more of a clip point. And it's not about how far, it's not about that this has the point lower than the clip point. If this straight line were a curve, which is, it's so far, it'd be practically impossible, right? Unless you're going to argue that this is all a curve, but I wouldn't. I'm seeing a straight line and a transition and a straight line, yeah? And here I'm seeing a bit more. Earlier I said, you know, I guess it's a clip point, but maybe not. Maybe it's a drop point. Swordbuster Jr. with something of a tanto point. It was kind of a tanto point, and then I just blended that out. So not really a tanto point anymore, but you know, I made it. I wanted more of a point on this one. Then I have another swordbuster where I did the reverse. Basically, it was one that it's a swordbuster junior that has a very rounded tip on it, almost like a shovel. And so I just worked off the point pretty much so I can use it for scraping out a spoon. That's a nice one, but I won't bother fetching it because we got so many knives. We still got a few to get through. Now, reverse tanto. This, for me, yes, got to call it a reverse tanto because I can't call it a sheep's foot because it has a belly. Unless I'm going to say sheep's foot with belly or something, right? But then why not go reverse tanto, right? Another lovely duplex grind on this ProTech Malibu. Like I say, I'm getting out some of my very, very snazziest knives that I didn't even think I ought to show because I don't want to be a show-off. But here I am, just barrel waving my ego around like a big warhammer. You know, what are a few knives? What are a few knives compared to that? Just like a pile of junk, really, compared to that. So, yeah, what is this thing? It's a drop point with a buck hole. New concept. Trailing point. The point, see this line here? And then the point is higher. And right up at the trailing. Sometimes, you know, it's a Persian if it's something more tactical. But if it's a fillet knife, then it's just a fillet knife with a trailing point, which many fillet knives have a trailing point, in my experience. WTF is this? I don't know, but it's got a clip point. It's a gas station knife. USA design. Real banger. Right, nearly done. Now, slightly classier cousin of the gas station knife, the auto parts store knife. What is this? Well, it's like a clip point cleaver thing, I guess, if I had to say. And anything with a big annoying spidey hole, well, maybe it's not annoying, maybe it's lovely. I mean, but when you got that, you just kind of maybe just imagine what it would be like if it didn't have that. And that's what it is. Drop point hunter. I'm done. So done. If any of you made it, Ave. And thank you for watching.